Well, it's December 15th, so that means it's time for my yearly Best Books of the Year video. This year, or at least at the time of recording this, I've rated 94 books, but just like last year, many of those were either research for videos on this channel, or research for videos on my Shakespeare channel. I was still able to read plenty of new books this year, and this is my top 5 of the year with a few honorable mentions. The rubric is the same as always. These are books that were published this year, or at least since the last time that I wrote one of these videos, and they're books that I cannot stop thinking about or referencing in my head. First is Martyr by Kaveh Akbar, which, if you've read it, this is probably no surprise to you. It's the story of a poet who travels to New York to visit a Maria Abramovich-style installation artist who is spending the last days of her life inside a museum having conversations with patrons. As you might imagine, I like a good discussion of art and poetry, so this is obviously my kind of thing, but I think it could be yours as well. It's about all the ways that we try to find meaning in life through the only tools that are available to us. Language, symbols, relationships, and so on. This is Akbar's first novel. He's more famous as a poet, and this novel has some of the most beautiful prose of any book that I read this year. I must have read the last 5 pages 100 times. It's a beautiful and short book. Just read it and let me know what you think. The second book is James by Percival Everett. It's a retelling of Huck Finn from the perspective of Jim, or, as he develops throughout the novel, James. You don't need the details of the adventures of Huckleberry Finn in your head to enjoy this one. Huck, the original, is an episodic adventure story, and so is James. Huck's story is a fun ride up and down the Mississippi River following a child who is struggling with his own individual sense of morality and his own individual sense of justice because it conflicts with the morality and justice of his society. James is a much darker tale of an enslaved man traveling up and down the Mississippi, trying to preserve his own humanity as his sense of self is attacked in every way you can imagine. James is the type of book that improves upon the source material. I want to say that again. This story improves upon Huckleberry Finn, one of the most enduring stories in American history. Truly an incredible novel. Reading this sent me down a Percival Everett rabbit hole, and straight up, I think he might be my favorite living author right now. The third book on this list is Long Island Compromise by Taffy Brodesser-Akner. This one begins with a kidnapping of a wealthy man and then follows the stories of his children as they grow up in the wake of that traumatic experience. For me, this book was an anecdote to the ways that some recent popular books like to draw straight lines between traumatic incidents and the psychological effects that they produce. Like how some books seem to take for granted that experiencing a brother's fatal head injury leads to someone becoming a brain surgeon and then physically abusing their partner. In Long Island Compromise, the same traumatic events manifest in all sorts of diverse and unexpected ways. It lets humans be complicated humans. There's no easy answer as to why each of the children behaves the way that they do or why they find a motivation in the things that motivate them. It's not even clear that the kidnapping is the most significant traumatic experience that they're all working through. The novel even positions their wealth as a form of transformative trauma that needs to be processed. It was refreshing to read a book like this, and I've been referencing bits of it in conversations ever since I read it. It's also surprisingly funny, given that it's a story about generational trauma. The fourth book on this list is God of the Woods by Liz Moore. I think this is the book that I've recommended the most to people this year. It's a mystery novel about a young girl who goes missing from a summer camp in the Appalachian woods. It's a page-turner, but it's also an interesting take on the genre. Murder mysteries are, by nature, a conservative genre. They take a community, introduce a crime, identify the criminal, and then, after punishing that criminal, return to the idealized past, a time before the crime. Very rarely does any detective novel offer the possibility of something new. They generally only offer a return to the past, a time before the crime. The systems are good, but the individuals who committed the crime are bad. That's what a detective novel traditionally does. But God of the Woods, it has an inspiring ending somehow. I can't explain it without giving it away, obviously, but it points us towards something new. I loved it. Read it. Let me know what you think. And the final book on this official list of the top 5 is perhaps my favorite of the bunch, Playground by Richard Powers. I finished it, turned it over, and I read it again. At the level of plot, this is a book about 2 friends from different backgrounds who bond over playing chess and the game Go. It then follows those 2 friends into their very different adult lives. One moves to a Pacific island and lives in obscurity, while the other becomes a billionaire tech CEO. It also has a few robust subplots, including that island in the Pacific struggling with an important referendum, and another subplot that follows a marine biologist who spends her life on research trips learning about the ocean, and then trying to manage her relationship with her family, and writing a book for young adults. Those are the things that happen in this novel at the narrative level. But above that level of narrative, it's a novel about our relationship with the sea, our relationship with technology, and our relationships with each other. It's a type of book that cannot be explained. It's an experience. To tell you what this book is about philosophically would take the 400 pages that it took Richard Powers to write it in the first place. It does something that only the medium of a novel can do. And I think that might actually be the point of the book. I'm not sure. I'm still thinking about it, and I'm probably going to be thinking about it for years. It's the best book of the year. Definitely read it. And of course, we've got some honorable mentions. Sally Rooney published a great one this year called Intermezzo. It's classic Sally Rooney, which is to say it's incredible. It would have made the list on any other year, but this was a particularly strong year for novels, I thought. I've got a podcast episode about it, so if you actually want my thoughts about it, I'll put a link in the description. If you want something fun and funny, Glorious Exploits by Ferdia Lenin is a short novel and a love song to theater and storytelling. Super fun. I also thought The Ministry of Time was great in surprising ways. It has moments of beautiful prose, moments when it flirts with ordinary language philosophy, and all the while just being a mostly fun time travel story. And the best nonfiction I read this year was There's Always Next Year by Hanif Abdurraqib, who, Lord, when this guy writes about anything, he can make me feel things. He can make me care. An essay by Abdurraqib can introduce me to a historical figure I've never even heard of on the first page and have me crying for that person by the end. This specific book is a series of essays about LeBron James, but also about growing up in Ohio and falling in love with basketball, and also about community and like everything else in life. I don't watch basketball, but I'll go wherever his essays take me, and I'll be better for the experience. Okay, that's enough for this year. Art videos will be back in the coming year. Thank you for watching.